You are catching the replay, so you're going to have to wait while I drink my water and wait for people to come on. Today is the 4th episode of the non-native Teacher Diaries. Big thanks to everybody who has joined us over the past 3 episodes, who has been commenting on the little clips, on the reels, has watched the whole episode. I'm really enjoying the conversations that we have had so far. I think we've covered some really important topics. I think my guests have raised some really interesting things, and I'm delighted that I get to kind of bring these to you in the form that they're in. Today, I am joined by Mary or Maria. I'm going to check with her when she comes on which name she prefers. And Maria, I think it's pronounced Glazanova, is she has built a name for herself as a Dogme trainer. She delivers presentations with the British Council and with teaching English, is it British Council Teaching English, Cambridge Teaching English? I've seen her give videos in random places on the internet all about Dogme, and I'll let her lead because, as we all know, this is a diary series. It's her diary. She gets to talk about what she wants to talk about, but I'm really hoping that she'll tell us a little bit about how Dogme works if you are dealing with some of the anxieties that a lot of my teacher clients have around worrying about the edge of your linguistic ability, the edge of your control. So I'm hoping that she'll have something to say on that. If she doesn't, whatever she does have to say is going to be fascinating. This is the really fun bit about this series, is that I get to say, hey, it's your space. You know, I'm excited to listen. I'm excited to learn and to find out more. So I'm going to do the boring technicality bits where audio will cut off and stuff. So I'm going to let Mary in, and then we'll get started in a second. Should be any minute now. Whoa. I think it's turned your camera around. Are you with us? This is fun. This hasn't happened before on Instagram Live. There's always a new technical problem to encounter. Maria? Hello? What I think has happened is that the camera has flipped. And I think we are getting a tripod there. Okay, she's left. Oh, technology. Isn't it fun? Let's take a look. I'll just wait for her. I'm assuming she'll kind of go out, come back. Well, this feels like the bit in like the stand-up gig where like something's happened off stage and now they've got to like chat for a few minutes. You talk about which topic? Very good question. Well, assuming that we can get our guest on, I have my laptop open over there, so if there is a problem, she can chat to us. Let's see, I'm here. Can you come in, Mary? Can you request to join again? But if we can get Mary on, which I'm sure we will be able to at some point, we're going to be talking about her experience as an English teacher who happens to be non-native, and it's her diary. So if you've caught episodes 1, 2, and 3, in which I spoke to Zdenek, Bistra, and Mayu, I really just let the space open for them. I've kind of got an idea of where I want to take the conversation and what I'm interested in, but it's really up to them to lead it in whatever way. It doesn't show the request. Mary, have you tried, and I'm sure you have, popping out and coming back in again? If you have, then I will end this live and we will start a new one. I wonder if I can invite you. Let me have a look. Ooh, invite to join. I've never even tried that option. Let me see if that works. Okay, I've now invited you. And we'll see if that does anything. Oh, you've also invited yourself. Technical stuff. How fun.
I don't know. Okay, just a second.
I can
think
hear
right now.
you this time. Amazing. Hello.
Yes,
That's
yes,
fun.
okay.
I was going into
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. You're absolutely
Yes, I'm renovation work and stuff, so,
technology. Technology. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Good.
Hopefully not too stressed from the desperately trying to find a way in. Thank you everyone for your patience, and thank you, Mary, for fighting through and joining us. I did say in the beginning I was going to ask, do you prefer Mary or Maria? I've been kind of using both.
Yes, I was smiling when you were saying that. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Actually, some friends call me Masha.
Okay. We have 3 options.
Something new. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I was kind of pulling together. I've been aware of you online, and like we've chatted a couple of times for so long that it was only in that introduction that I was like, I feel like I don't know any facts about you. Could you introduce yourself? How do you see yourself as a language professional? Can you quickly introduce yourself to me
Right.
and also to listeners?
Right. I actually, so I'm a Dogme teacher trainer. And at the same time, I also specialize in kind of niche teaching for students in IT specialists. So this is my, I would say, primarily, yes, primary goal and, I don't know, objective and my passion. Actually, both of these directions, they are my passions. And I do enjoy, talking to teachers and talking about Dogme and different topics, burnout, of course. I think it's very hot topics these days. Yeah, so this is what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, you have a book I think that you wrote a few years ago, which is that about burnout, or am I imagining that?
No. It's about how to basically prepare less for classes, but still have really effective classes and really respond to student needs and to base the classes on their interests. So it's more like, I don't know, I of course, I share different tips and tricks and techniques. So it's like kind of packed with action, let's say. And Dogme, of course, yes.
Of course. And where are you joining from right now? Because I know you've been back in Ukraine for a while. Are you still there? Are you in Canada? You've over the place.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm kind of moving, like I'm in Canada, then at some point I came to Kiev, then it was a bit too much of this rocket attacks and missiles, so I decided kind of not to go back to Canada, no, to go to Western Ukraine for some time, and right now I returned and started renovation works, so I'm kind of optimistic.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Are you happy to be back in Ukraine then?
Oh, absolutely. I haven't regretted even for a split of the second, about my decision. Seriously, I love Canada. I respect this country so much. I learned a lot, as a professional, as a person, as a sister of my sister there. I lived with her. Yeah, but it's good to be home. Yeah.
Good. Really glad to hear that. And so this series is the Non-Native Teacher Diaries. We've had a couple very, very brief chats offline about kind of what this is going to look like, but this is your space. It's your diary, your chance to kind of give your experience. Before we begin, I've asked all of my guests so far this question about terminology and using the phrase native teacher, non-native teacher, native speaker, non-native speaker. Before we go any further, do you have any thoughts on that topic?
I've been thinking for a while as you contacted me, and even before, obviously. Yes, but it's such an interesting topic. I have colleagues who are on both sides, who are non-natives as me, who are natives, and they are amazing professionals, but it really takes, of course, how to say, a lot of development, a lot of effort and courage in both, I would say, like this direction. Because, you know, sometimes when, yeah, I understand there is a lot of pain in this topic for non-native speakers, you know. When I watched like your diaries before, like I was like, oh my God, so, I don't know, heartbreaking at some points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was in my case also some heartbreaking stories, of course, you know, as a non-native speaker. But I also, yeah, I also respect native speakers. And but once again, it really, I would say, like takes a lot of effort and techniques, and you know, like to kind of to move forward, and a lot of psychology and a lot. And I know that some like native speakers, they also do like a great job, right? But once again, like to be judged just by this how to say, like the place where you were born,
Mm-hmm.
right? In our stereotypical society, it's kind of even understandable to some extent because we have so many stereotypes, right? But on the other hand, I don't, of course, think that it is normal, of course.
Yeah.
No.
And you mentioned it briefly there. Is this something that you have dealt with yourself?
Yes, of course. Well, yeah, and you know, I can say that I have been to a lot of, for example, job interviews. It just happened this way that I just, you know, like apply, applied in like some, I would say, like job positions, and I just got the job, and like I worked there for a substantial period of time, and then, yeah, I was like fed up with all of that, and I just decided to become self-employed because of this is one of the reasons, you know. But anyway, even as I was, of course, in this on this journey, of course, I encountered some situations definitely that, you know, involved, you know, this kind of thing, even actually, and recently, you know, and not recently, and so on. And I actually remembered one story. You know, I started even before going into teaching, like fully, I had some aspirations about acting. I really wanted, yes, to play in English, to become like an actress, and had a husband, you know, right now he's my ex-husband, but at that time we were together, and we both had that, I would say, that wish, that goal. And, but once again, at the same time, we were also teaching, you know, because to make kind of sustainable, right, to make a living. Yes, and at some point, my ex-husband, we really needed money at that, yeah, at that point, and being a very good actor, and he was really good at, you know, accents and everything. Mm-hmm. And yes, and so basically he applied for a job, and he looks like, I would say, some foreigner, you know, like half Vietnamese, and he pretended to be a native speaker. He played the role, like literally, of a native speaker. And guess what? He got, of course, like much higher, like twice higher salary than me, you know? But yes, you know, and at that time, I actually didn't, I mean, I kind of considered it to be normal because, you know, when you are in this kind of normality, it's considered a norm. Yeah. So you were like, yeah, it's like, it's normal. That's the way it is. You know, you just like work hard and, well, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
I think that's really interesting because what I've come across is that there's sort of, as I see it, kind of two main sides to the native speakerism problem. And one is the discriminatory practices. And I think Bistra just left a comment in the chat kind of saying it's not about natives versus non-natives, it's the practice, it's the discrimination.
Yeah.
And then there's also that kind of internalized one, which isn't so much about, you know, like, did they give him a higher salary or did they not? But it's that thought in your head which goes, yeah, yeah, that's normal. That's the way. Maybe it's not good, but it's the way it is. Yep. And then when that kind of goes even deeper, you get the kind of story that Mayu was saying, where she genuinely believed she wasn't a good enough teacher because she wasn't native. And that wasn't something she went, oh no, I need to get rid of this thought. She was like, this is simply the way it is. I am not as good a teacher as a native teacher, and I never will be, full stop.
Yeah.
Like zero kind of criticism of that thought, because it had just been the water she was swimming in. Interesting.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, that's what happened basically to me also. I like considered it to be normal, because I thought, like native speakers, they really know all these expressions, all this idiomatic language, they feel the language is like their language, I would say, like all this stuff. But then my illusion kind of started to crash when native speakers, my colleagues, they kind of, on a number of occasions, they would approach me and ask me to explain something to them, and I'm like, wait a minute. Some kind of cracks in my illusions kind of started to but anyway, so I was like, okay. And then I actually had like my own experience when a foreigner approached me and asked me to teach him, I'm like a native of my native language, right? And just teach me, this. And I mean, I learned it at school and everything. So I was like, okay, I'm aware, I can speak, like what? Just like that, I know, I feel the language, I know all the idiomatic expressions.
Yeah.
Guess what? I was like an awful teacher. I'm like, oh my God.
Why is it like this? I don't know. How do you do this?
Feel it. Just feel it.
Know.
Exactly. And then I started kind of to attend like different classes of my different colleagues, natives, non-natives, doesn't matter. And I just noticed some of the things that in a lot of cases they, for example, couldn't explain why it is like that. And so it's like, oh, okay. And it was just basically about some idiomatic expression, about some chat and so on. But once again, not always it was the true, right? I mean, but in some cases, so I was like, so it takes a little bit more just to be born in the country, Yeah, and like really, I agree with Bistra that it's also the way how it was positioned, and like a lot of people were making money on that as well, so on this positioning, right, that of course it was influencing all the areas, all the teachers, and you like just, okay, not good enough ever. I mean, it's good to have the growth mindset, I mean, it's just necessary, you always keep learning, but what happens internally? And that's what you mentioned. Are we like criticizing ourselves and just like so perfectionistic about like, or our students come and I don't know, they ask a question and you're like, oh my God, I don't know the answer to this question, I'm a bad teacher, so many things, because I'm just not native. At some point I also had a burnout because of all this combination. I also did CELTA because I wanted to be a better teacher, like the best of the, no, not like the best of the best, but in terms of like really qualified, so I did that and I really honed my skills like crazy, and I criticized, and I kind of all that's basically I believe that a lot of teachers went through. I definitely I've been there, and and of course it led to burnout. I mean, right now I see it's so logical, but not at that time,
Absolutely. I was speaking with Mary from the non-native teacher or non-native speaker. I never remember her handle, and I should, because I mention her in all of these and I can never remember her handle. I was chatting to Mary and we were talking about the problem of like over qualifying, and how lots of my clients do exactly what you just described, which is, I'm going to do CELTA, I'm going to do this webinar, I'm going to get this thing, I'm going to get this thing, because these certificates will act as a kind of shield against the kind of internal belief I have, which is that I will never be good enough because I'm not a native speaker. And until you address that belief, the webinar is just like flimsy paper, and it's not going to protect you from anything. And once you've fixed as much as one can ever fix an internal belief, but once you've fixed that and you go, oh, actually I am a legitimate part of this community, this industry, I'm a professional, then the webinar or the Delta or the Masters starts becoming actual development instead of this need for affirmation. Which, yeah.
That's a terrific point. Yes. Wow. Wow. Wonderful. So not like fixing, but actually contributing, like genuinely contributing to your development, right? And you feel good about that, and at every step. This is another thing, you know, so like that you feel good about every step of your journey, you know. And you know, I was like, I had an interesting conversations, of course, in Canada, you know, because I met a lot of native speakers. Yeah, and yes, in the sea, in the ocean, you know. So I was like, oh, yeah, I was like so grateful for that experience. And a lot of them, of course, they complimented my English and like so fluent and everything. And I remember we went to my sister's friends and they asked us to play some song because we can play, we can sing. So that's what we did. And they were like, oh my God, when you're singing, we don't hear your accent. So that's so interesting. But when you speak, we still can hear your accent. And, you know, at some point, I really made peace, you know, with the way I am, who I am, with my kind of English, with my kind of accent. And I really didn't like intentionally, I didn't want to change it. Of course, I wanted to improve so everybody can understand me clearly, of course. But the accent itself, no, I want to keep it. I want to sound exactly, you know, as me from Ukraine, you know, with all the background that I have, and kind of be proud of that, you know. And that's what I empower my students kind of to do the same. And of course, we work sometimes, yes, like from time to time on some pronunciation aspects and so on, but they're not so obsessed with that, I would say, you know, that it would fix them in some way, you know. Or
yeah, I love that. So one thing I really want to talk to you about, because you said that you're a Dogme teacher trainer. I've been working with, there's one client in my mind in particular, but it has come up with others, where you can tell they're feeling maybe like a frustration with their teaching, they're feeling quite stuck, and something like Dogme, which I will actually get you to define in a second, but something like Dogme is this, I mean, I love it as just a creative, it allows so much freedom and flexibility and like into your teaching, so you're not, it's the opposite of that rigid like page 21, page 22 course approach, which is depressing and stultifying after years. And you could see that this client that I have in my mind was like desperate to just connect with her students, but when I suggested something like Dogme, she was like, I would hate the feeling of not knowing what language is going to come up in a class because I'm not a native speaker. I don't know all the words, as if a native speaker does know all the words. We don't. But, you know, she was so scared of letting go of that perceived control that she had in her classes. I'm wondering, if you can tell listeners what Dogme is if they're not familiar with it, but also if that's something you dealt with, if it's something that teachers that you help train deal with. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Of course. Teachers love control, huh? Like being in control, like 100%. Yeah, I have to say, at least I used to be. Right now, I'm like more, I learned kind of to follow my students and so on. Yeah. But it was a journey. It was a journey, definitely. And before asking like fully to this question, I would like to go back a little bit to my burnout experience, because one of the things why it happened, of course, because of some sabotaging, self-criticism and everything, not really being kind to myself, but also because I desperately tried to find that connection with my students, you know, because I would go to this page number 26, but then I would try to, you know, like personalize anyway to some extent and everything, but still there was something between us, you know, all these materials, all these curriculums, a lot of different things that all the time they were like distracting so much, and there was no like not completely no connection, but in a lot of cases, like this like disconnection. And I was suffering because of that a lot, because in my understanding, emotional connection is really important in language learning. Then it actually happens, really, because yeah, without it, I'm not sure that it's even possible, to be honest. So yeah, and then at some point I decided to leave some language school because I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I was like, yeah, I understood, like, I gotta go. I don't know where. You know, yeah, but I'm just out of here. And yeah, I think the last point was when I just saw the teacher just like me, but she voiced everything that I've been, like, I was at that time, yes, I was going through that, yeah, you're like in rat race and everything. So all these things that basically we have discussed. And she was like, and there, but she said something that there is no way out. And I was like, okay, that little phrase made me so angry, you know, like I was so furious, because I was like, no, that's not how it should be, you know. Natives, non-natives, who cares? We're humans, first of all, you know. And I just left, and then I was like ready for new opportunities, you know. I just like opened the space and just decided to see what would happen. And then this course of Dogme actually came into my life with Scott Thornbury. I absolutely admire this person and his non-judgmental way of teaching. And I would say that he was the first really person who empowered like everyone on that course, you know, native, non-native. I mean, there was even not a question, or like 40 years experience, 10 years of experience, right? So we could kind of complement each other, really learn from each other. And he was also really empowering about, it doesn't matter, you know, so the language, so how to kind of to be welcoming to this emergent language and being a non-native, okay, like, or whatever, like to really go with that, you know, to go with that flow, to work with it, and not to be afraid, not to have all the answers to all the questions. That was like the first, I don't know, like the first moment when I was like, oh my God, it's okay. I'm not Google, I'm not a machine, you know, I'm actually human, and we can discover the language together with my students. Of course, I have the expertise. Of course, I have all the Delta, whatever, Celta and everything. But we can actually find fun in that process. And yeah, and just like open to the space and be ready to basically anything. And, you know, and it's just some, like this switch happened and some magic started to happen, you know, during my classes, gradually. Because, you know, you can't just, you know, like you know, it's not like you're like somebody throwing you like a kitten and you're like, ah, what's happening, you know. But you know, like, yeah, like, okay, but you kind of, okay, so you like swam a little bit and then you know, like went back, you know, like to a little bit rest. Okay, I'm in control, everything is good. Then again, you know, like so you can, anyway, you can also do it gradually. So maybe to that client of yours, right, maybe this can be the case. So you can be showing, you know, just like step by step how you can expand, you know, and just like instill this idea, like, what if, just like a little bit, yeah. So let's try it out, you know, let's try and see what happens. And I would say that would happen to me, and then I just like fully embraced that approach. Yes. And what you asked also, what Dogme is about, right? So it is a communicative, of course, approach, but you know, like in this TTT, everything, so it starts and it's very highly structured with, you know, like leading, then you go to some basic practice, then you have controlled practice. So there's like a lot of control. And here we started with the production stage from the start, right? So we, for example, ask and of course, our students about their needs, about their interests. So we'll do all this like needs analysis so we can understand better where to go. Like even today, I had a class with IT guys, a group. I prepared one thing, and I don't know, and they were so passionate about the topic of dancing. Like it just happened. Yes, yeah, it just happened that another lady, she came and she had some line dance class, and she was like so excited about that. And then they just like, oh my God, I also dance, and like I just danced like on the prom with my daughter, and blah, blah. So it's like, oh my God, it's like full half of the class, right? So from the sometimes, you know, from the perspective of, you know, like highly qualified or whatever teacher, you know, like, oh, this is a wasted time or something, right? It can be perceived in that way. But if you really let it flow, see what happens, and as you go, of course, you will like and kind of tune in with the meaning first, not to be really worried, oh my God, what about like the mistake, what about some, you know, like I'm a teacher, I gotta teach them something, right? But first of all, gonna go with the flow, go with the meaning, and make it really meaningful and engaging for them. And as they go, you can give like this like feedback. Oh, you can actually some extensions, or maybe you can ask them to reformulate something. Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. Like, could you please so you can use kind of different techniques. And out of that, you can, of course, kind of get some interesting emergent language, write it down, and work with that, and on like the next classes and so on. But it becomes a completely different dynamic, you know, not when you're like the authority in control, you know, like I'm the best. No, but once again, teachers don't do it, I believe, because of some, I don't know, some whatever reasons. But first of all, they just want to really provide a quality service for their students, that they really will learn something, right? So there are kind of good intentions, but the intentions, as we know, kind of can pave the road to hell. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
You reminded me when you were speaking about this client that I mentioned earlier, another of the thoughts in her mind was, I'm a teacher, I need to teach. I need to be like giving so much. And the kind of something we worked on quite a lot was rethinking what the role of a teacher is. And a role of a teacher in a Dogme classroom, yeah, there's the pulling out emergent language, there's the writing it down, there's the drawing attention to, you know, focus on forms, blah, blah, blah. But there's also just facilitator and like creating a space for genuine communication through the language about something you actually care about. And I know that you care about it because you brought it up. Like, it's your life that you're bringing to the classroom. It's not kind of you trying to dredge up some emotion on the topic of AI from the article that I chose.
Yeah.
It's you brought the line dancing.
Yeah.
You brought the story of dancing with your daughter on the pier. Therefore, I know it's relevant. And even if in this class you don't learn a piece of vocabulary that you will like remember forever and will add to your general linguistic skill, what you will be doing is connecting with English and realizing at a kind of body level that English allows you to connect with other people. And I think that in the long term is so much more important than like you learned 5 new words.
Yeah. Oh my God, so many things clicked, you know, as you were saying. I was like, yeah, you know, that's so funny. Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what? A lot of students right now, when they come and they tell me after the first class, you know what? I lost my fear of speaking. And for me, this is, oh my God, you know, so I make mistakes, you know, I kind of, and once again, you corrected them. And I just I feel so comfortable in my skin, you know, it's like, it's such an amazing feeling, you know, I just lost this fear. And yeah, sometimes they tell me, you know what, I rediscovered the joy of learning, you know, and oh my God, you know, and on CELTA, we didn't put this as objective, okay, students, will have rediscovered the joy in learning. Nope.
By the end of this lesson.
Yes, it's
Absolutely, yeah. I think especially, I mean, coming back, I guess, to our original theme, which is non-native teachers, that pressure to say, you know, like, what we mentioned at the beginning, the need to be in control. I need to be Google, because this is in my head what a good teacher is. A good teacher has all the answers. Okay, let's get rid of that definition. That's not true. I need to teach something. My students need to get something from this hour with me. Okay, let's get rid of that definition. And all of this, I mean, it's radical. I don't think it happens, you know, as you said, like, it needs to happen bit by bit. It can't just, you can't just kind of go, oh yeah, cool, I'm totally happy with this completely new definition of teaching, and I'm just going to put that on and wear that for the rest of my life. No, it takes time. It takes a process to kind of go, oh, maybe all the criteria, the standards I was holding myself to and failing at, or doing my students a disservice with, maybe they're wrong, and maybe that means I need to have a new definition of what a teacher is, and that is big. It's big.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, definitely that's what I think I started also with, right? With the mindset. It's always mindset, really, is the biggest thing that, you know, when you change that, everything else falls into place. And it usually takes years, like literally years of constant, you know, like tweaking and, you know, like just seeing and like rethinking, redefining for yourself, you know. It's just, it's a very long process. I also had that experience of writing a book. You know what was my first reaction when I worked with Elena Mutanona, amazing coach for teachers, and when we first met, we actually didn't really think about writing a book or something. She said, oh, maybe like let's work on some freebie for teachers, and just like put some, you know, like tips and tricks and so on. And as I started to work on it, I started to pour some stories, you know, of my burnout and everything, and it just grew into something much bigger, as we call it, like labor of love. But the first thing that I had when like she kind of, okay, what if like you write like a book, you know, not just like a freebie or something for teachers, but like a book. You see how it's like, it's moving into that direction. I was like, no way. I mean, I don't have the experience of writing the books. I'm not an author. I'm a native speaker. All these things, they just like, ta-da, you know. And like working with coaches, you know, in my experience, it was really beneficial. Right now also I work with coaches because it helps you to look at what you're thinking. Yeah, it's like what you're believing, you know. And then when you start shifting that, then everything's, as I said, like starts falling into place. I can say that I made much more peace with myself, you know, about these matters. And you know what? It really influences the way I teach, and it really influences how my students, you know, perceive themselves as well. So it's like, because that's what you project, you know, this attitude. And and it becomes easier for them to deal with their mistakes, you know, it's like fear of mistakes, with their perfectionism. Of course, it's like they need to work on that as well, but that's what you offer as a teacher as well. Not only, okay, come across, the definition of come across, right? You can Google it, you know, you can like, we have this chat GPT, like, voila, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I spoke to Mayu about the same thing, because Mayu was saying, you know, she worked with actually the same coach that I worked with, a guy called Ollie, and she said that it was almost exactly the same story, not writing a book, but starting her business and having to promote it online. Suddenly, all these thoughts that up until then had been there, but under the surface, were suddenly right in front of her, and she's having to go, oh shit, these thoughts, these beliefs that I have about myself, about the job that I do, about the English that I teach, are suddenly a barrier to something that I know I want. And until they stood up like that, she wasn't really aware of them, because you're just, it's the water that you swim in, it's just all around you. And it was that process of having to go, okay, I need to really address these ideas, that then allowed, as you said, things to start falling into place. And it was the same when you mentioned, you know, Scott Thornbury saying that, what I can't remember exactly what he said, but you said it was click. And I love that because it's both really fast and really slow. There's the click and suddenly things are shifting, but actually years before they finish shifting. and
Yeah.
that ready for another click, I think. But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I just like, I'm thinking right now about that, and I think it clicked because of my previous kind of work that I did, and I made a decision myself. And I remember one quote, one colleague of mine, he laughs at me because I love quotes and I kind of quote a lot. I don't know, I just like, you know, reading people and stuff, but it just, yeah, sorry. So the quote is about like, what is really enough, you know? And in the quote, that lady, she said that, you know, it's actually a decision when you think like, what is enough? And like, enough is enough. And that's what I think, like, all teachers, they get to this point, you know, when they kind of accumulate this dissatisfaction, like this treatment sometimes, you know, when you come to the interview and you say, ah, you're a non-native speaker, so your salary is such, you know, so you kind of, you know, all these like little things, they contribute to this kind of dissatisfaction. And at work, for example, you can also have some, maybe, I don't know, requirements or whatever. Yeah, so many things. So maybe your students are not, yeah, you're not so connected to your students. So all these things, they just bit by bit by bit come to the point when then it's just like really one way or another, or it will just erupt, and like with your health and with everything else, you know. Yeah, actually, yeah, it's like my illusions really crashed when I, yeah, about like, I mean, okay, just like, okay, let's not go into that direction. So yeah, it just like, or there is eruption, or there is like your decision, no, I'm going to do something about it, right? And kind of go into the other direction, right? And yeah, and just like see how you can figure out, you know, this like way through, because you always have to face it, because you can't just run from that all your life, right? Once again, we choose, right? But that's what I choose, you know, to always face it and kind of to go through. I can pause sometimes, you know, like to see how it's going, or just like, I don't know, just maybe revitalize myself, and then I move forward. And yeah, so this decision comes, and then everything, and then this click happens. So this click, it's, yeah, really a matter of 99% of effort and sweat and trying to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that enough is a decision. Enough is a decision. I think that's something, I've never heard it said like that, but I think that's something that I work with my clients on so often, because we have this idea of, well, when I know everything, and it's not expressed like that often, because you know that sounds stupid. You say it out loud and it sounds stupid, but you have this feeling that like, well, when I feel no nerves at all, that's when I'll be fluent. When I have no mistakes at all, that's when I'll be fluent. And it's like, well, okay, but you're going to be dissatisfied for a very long time. Like, you have to make the decision to say, I am absolutely delighted to continue improving for the rest of my life, but I'm good enough now.
And
from this point onwards, I am just not going to hold on to, not going to listen to those thoughts that come up in my head. We're done. I'm good enough. I'm a good enough professional. I'm a good enough, like, I have enough experience. I have enough language. Done. And obviously it isn't a magic pill. It doesn't just all go away. But there is a decision where you go, nah, we're done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then when you, I think, get a clear vision, right? Like where you actually want to go, and you understand the steps that lead to that, and you just start doing that, and you understand that it's okay if you do it like 30% right now, like okay-ish, right? Then you get to like a little bit better. So I like this James Clear. I have this on my on my wall. One, like, to get better, like 1% better every day, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just walk. It's okay that it's imperfect, enough to be perfectly imperfect, because we are all in the same boat in that. Yeah, nobody is perfect, really. Yeah, to have this growth mindset, but also just keep learning. And once again, I think this ingredient is really important, to find the joy in this process as a teacher, because it's so often when we can say to our students right now, for example, about like fear of making mistakes, so we empower them, we encourage them, but then what about us? Do we say the same to ourselves? Are we really kind to ourselves? Oh, it's okay. Do we pat ourselves on the back, Yeah, this is like one of the things that I think we gotta definitely consider. And this is something that I would say is about all of us, like completely without these distinctions. I think these distinctions, they come more when we actually get to the job, because financial, I would say, like, point is really important for, I mean, all of us, of course. Like one of the things, right? Yeah, like financial one. Yeah, it's a shame, honestly, what teachers are being paid, really. Yeah, so so I think, this once again, when you go back to your mindset, what I can do, yes, when you also, I don't know, speak up in some, I would say, situations like you are doing, right? You're also spreading, you're not like fighting, with the system, but I would say you're more like offering an alternative way. Hey guys, like, shedding light on this matter, because like, as we told right before, that like for me, I considered it normal back then, right? And I believe a lot of teachers do, but they watch this, like, series, and they kind of listen to all the stories that teachers also have been like going through, and of course it's resonating, because just like it's like all our stories are plus minus the same, honestly, and and I think it is really, really important, this, we are educators and we are educating, right, in a peaceful way, in this way, right, but still bringing awareness. So I'm really grateful for this series that you're doing.
I mean, I'm grateful to you for agreeing to be a guest, and for all the guests, and for all the people listening and commenting and like sharing. It's just, the conversation has been such a gift. I think there's I mean, you probably have the same from running your own business and being self-employed. You do some projects and they feel like a lot of effort and like this much gain. Like, that was a lot for not that much. And this is like the exact opposite. I feel like I'm doing like 10% effort, like it's really easy, and I'm getting like 1,000% rewards in terms of the conversation, connections, and like it's an absolute, I mean, it feels bad to say it's a pleasure, because a lot of what we're talking about is a discrimination that I will never face. So it feels, what's the word I want to describe, but irresponsible to say I'm having fun, because that's not what it is. But it is really great to have these conversations and to get different people's perspective, because as you say, they are like more or less, it's a similar kind of beat running through the four guests are, and yet there are distinctions, and yet it's come up in different ways, manifested in different ways. And I think that's really interesting and great for teachers who perhaps, I know that there are people watching who have been in this conversation for the best part of a decade, and there are people who are in this conversation perhaps for the first time, and it's really good, I think, to get that variety of takes on it. So we're going to draw this to an end now. This has been a long conversation, but it's been fascinating. Thank you so much, Mary, for being a guest and for agreeing.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting. You're a great host, so I just like feel so like spacious and empowered, so I don't feel like I'm tired or something, So such conversations, they give energy, and something to think about also, kind of to shift the perspective.
Well, it's your diary, so I'm glad that you felt you had that space. And thank you as well.
Thank you.
who's joined us and who's left comments. You know, I apologize every time, but I'm not somebody who can have a conversation and read comments at the same time. So I'm not responding to them, but I am reading them and I'm appreciating them. And if you've caught the replay, big thank you to you as well. I will be back on Thursday with the next installment of the Non-Native Teacher Diaries. I hope very much to see you there. Mary, thanks again.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.